The factory floor at Reeves Dynamics echoed with the hum of malfunctioning machines, frustrated murmurs, and tapping shoes. At the heart of it all was a sleek prototype engine, a marvel of modern engineering built for next-gen electric trucks. It had cost the company $12 million in R&D, but today it was dead, non-responsive. 10 engineers had tried and failed to revive it. The CEO, Malcolm Reeves, had flown in personally from New York. His flight suit was still wrinkled from the red-eye, and his eyes were sharp with frustration. He wasn't a man who tolerated failure, especially not in his own company. He stood with his arms folded, watching a team of senior staff scramble around the broken beast of an engine like mechanics around a crashed UFO. Then the janitor entered, Louis Grant, quiet as always, mop in one hand, toolkit belt slung over his shoulder. But this time he wasn't alone. A little girl followed behind him, maybe 8 years old. Her curly hair was tied into 2 puffs, her overalls were slightly too big, and a small adjustable wrench swung from her belt loop like it belonged there. She wasn't holding her father's hand. She didn't seem nervous. She just watched the chaos, eyes bright and curious. "What's this?" Malcolm asked with a raised eyebrow, noticing the girl. "Bring your kid to work day." Louis smiled nervously. "No, sir. Just had no one to watch her this morning. She stays quiet." "She's welcome to watch," Malcolm said dismissively. "Just keep her out of the way." But the engineers were already murmuring. One of them leaned down and said jokingly to the girl, "Hey, you think you can fix what we can't?" The girl tilted her head. "Your power interface is mismatched. You're routing the wrong amperage through the stabilizer. That's why it shuts down every time." The laughter was immediate. "Did she just say stabilizer?" one of them said, chuckling. Malcolm turned, amused. "Well, now, you've got opinions. I just watched the video loop in the lobby. You're feeding it too much current when it boots. The copper gets hot, probably burned a connector." There was a beat of silence. Malcolm stared at her, then looked at his lead engineer, who looked unsure whether to be insulted or impressed. "You're serious?" Malcolm asked. "You think you know what's wrong?" She nodded. "Okay," he said, his voice challenging. "If you're so sure, let's make a deal. You fix it, I'll give you a summer internship. Fail, and you get to mop up oil with your dad all day." Her father quickly stepped in. "Sir, she's just a child. She didn't mean—" "I accept," the girl said, already stepping toward the engine. Malcolm blinked. She knelt beside the machine, eyes focused. With the confidence of someone far beyond her years, she unfastened the side panel, took out a flashlight from her own belt, and began inspecting the wires. She moved with precision, not randomly touching, but analyzing, adjusting. Everyone watched in awkward silence. Then she reached into her father's pouch, pulled out a tiny metal pick, and cleared some corrosion from a connector. With one more twist, she reseated the power cable, stood up, and stepped back. "Try it now," she said. One engineer scoffed, another shrugged and pressed the ignition key. The engine sputtered, then roared. A perfect start. Smooth, clean, silent awe took over the room. Malcolm's jaw dropped. And in that single moment, the janitor's daughter outshined every resume in the building. The room fell into stunned silence. The engine, once an expensive pile of frustration, now purred with flawless rhythm. Lights on the interface blinked green. The diagnostic screen lit up with a message that no one had seen in weeks. System fully operational. Ava wiped her hands on her overalls, completely unfazed. To her, this was just another afternoon fixing what was broken. But to everyone else in that room, it was a moment they'd never forget. Malcolm Reeves took a few slow steps forward, as if approaching something sacred. His face had shifted from smug disbelief to a complex mixture of awe and curiosity. He stared at the child who had just outperformed his best engineers. "How did you know?" Ava looked up at him. "The problem was right there in the lobby video. You were pushing 48 volts through a 36-volt line. That burns the connector. Once I saw that, I just followed the signs." The head of engineering, a man with 3 decades of experience, looked completely defeated and strangely proud. She's right. That's exactly what we missed. Malcolm crouched down to Ava's level. Do you know what this engine powers? She shook her head. This engine is meant to run autonomous medical drones that deliver supplies to emergency zones. In other words, you didn't just fix a machine, you may have saved lives. Ava's eyes widened a little. Cool. Louis, standing in the corner, finally stepped forward. Sir, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble. She's always been like this, curious. I taught her how to use a wrench, but she taught herself how to see things I don't. Malcolm stood up straight. Mr. Grant, not only are you not in trouble, you just became the reason this company has a future. He turned to Ava. And you, young lady, have an official invitation to our Young Inventors Academy. We'll cover everything, tuition, mentorship, even your transportation. Ava blinked. But I still have school. We'll work around it, Malcolm smiled. Some people study to get ahead. Others just see the world differently. You're the second kind. People started clapping. Engineers who moments earlier had dismissed her as a distraction now looked at her like a legend. One whispered to another, "She just rewrote our whole approach." A kid, a reporter from the corporate media team who'd come to do a routine segment on the prototype, approached and snapped a photo. "The janitor's daughter who fixed the future," he whispered. As Malcolm walked Ava and Louis toward the executive elevators, he leaned in and said, "By the way, Ava, why do you always carry a wrench?" She smiled. "Because sometimes all it takes to fix something big is something small." The doors closed. Weeks later, a press release would go viral. 8-year-old girl fixes multi-million-dollar tech, stuns engineering world. But within the factory walls of Reeves Dynamics, no headline was needed. The girl in the oversized overalls had already changed everything. And her father, who had spent a lifetime walking past closed doors, finally got to see one swing wide open, not for him, but for the brilliant daughter he quietly raised. Because sometimes genius wears sneakers, and sometimes heroes mop floors, until the world takes notice.